The end of the year is arriving quickly, and I'm not gonna lie, this year in gaming has definitely been a year for me, so let's get into it. I just want to clarify real quick, I am unfortunately sick because I always tend to get sick at least once around winter time. My voice probably sounds like I've been eating Morgan Freeman, but regardless, 2023 is ending, and of course, this year has been a pretty decent year for video games. Why not make a video recapping my gaming experience in 2023? To start it off, since this video game came out at the beginning of 2023, I'm going to start my recapping experience with this game, and that is Hi-Fi Rush. I was not expecting a Bethesda game to not only be on my list of games to play this year, but a Bethesda game that was like way at the top of the best games that I have ever played in my entire life, arguably. It is a phenomenal game. It is a well-polished game. It has a lot of humor in it. It has a very charming cast. There's a lot of pop culture references, and also the fact that the game itself is such a creative attempt at trying something new. Like, this game is practically Guitar Hero having sex with Dante from the Devil May Cry series. The timing of the attacks can be on beat with the music, as well as the background and sound effects all being on beat with the music in the game. I'm actually glad that it did get to win an award at the Game Awards, but I'm not gonna hold you. It definitely deserved to win like 2 more awards. Literally anything that had to do with like art and creativity, Hi-Fi Rush is like a Michelin star example of a team of developers doing something pretty innovative. Now, these next 2 games are both from the Like a Dragon series, the artist formerly known as Yakuza series. This year, RGG Studio released Like a Dragon Isshin, which is a spin-off remake of the original. They also released Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. Now, starting off with Isshin, one, I would say that seeing Isshin get a remake made a lot of people happy. It made me happy to get to try an actual Like a Dragon spin-off, because there are much more Like a Dragon spin-offs that are just like exclusively in Japan. That being said though, Like a Dragon Isshin reminded me of why I detest the PS3 era Like a Dragon games. I'm sorry, I do not like 3, I do not like 4, I do not like 5, and I kind of enjoyed Isshin, but like those 4 games are like on the very bottom of my like ultimate Like a Dragon series game rating list, whatever you want to call the shit. And it necessarily has to do with the controls more so than like the story, because from what I could tell when I got the chance to play 3 through 5 remastered and also playing Isshin, is that there was a lot of experimentation being done with those games, and especially with Isshin, as I was playing it, I noticed a lot of features that were inevitably put into Like a Dragon 7. So I would say that like I actually appreciated seeing the elements that I witnessed and got to experience in Like a Dragon 7. It was good kind of seeing like the experimental stage of them in Isshin. That, and I will also say like I didn't completely dislike Isshin because the side quests in Isshin were hilarious. That side quest where they were like doing a parody of Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai, that had me rolling. As far as Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, Like a Dragon Gaiden is probably up there with being in my top 3 most favorite Like a Dragon games of all time. I really didn't have much of an expectation when it came to playing the game. I thought that it was just gonna, of course, like naturally tell what's happening to Kiryu before you meet Ichiban. And what I got instead from Like a Dragon Gaiden was this beautiful but short expansion on Kiryu as a person, Kiryu as a character. Kiryu is a pretty stoic character for the most part, though he also has like a bit of a humor to him. For the most part, Kiryu is usually reactive to everything. He's usually reactive to the situations. And Like a Dragon Gaiden, seeing Boomer Kiryu, or this sassy man Kiryu, was such a sight to behold, because it was so funny seeing Kiryu in this one side quest where like he's being strung along, and Kiryu is just like, all right, and now you're going to do this. You're gonna pop up from behind that wall and you're gonna demand for extortion money. I'm so sick and tired of this shit. Where's my Marlboros? This game does a better job than Like a Dragon 6 at celebrating and being very respectful of Kiryu's backstory. There is a lot of side quests, and even in like some of the mini games, they are all references to not just what Kiryu has done in the previous Yakuza titles that he stars in, but you also see Kiryu actually reflecting upon these particular events or these particular people. It really showcases just how beloved of a character Kiryu still is. Like, you can tell like a lot of love and heart went into making this game. Now, to talk about a game that came out this year that I actually just could not continue on with would have to be The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I understand that it is a Breath of the Wild sequel. It's just not the Breath of the Wild sequel that I was expecting. I appreciate and give Tears of the Kingdom props for doing something different. It was about after 20 hours of doing Build-A-Bear simulations where I was just done. I threw my hands up. I just had to realize that the game is probably not for me. I was over the whole building gimmick by the time I even got to the first temple, the fire temple or whatever. Once a game starts feeling like a job to me, that's when the game starts to lose me. And what I did to Tears of the Kingdom is exactly what I did to my electrical engineering major during my first year of university. Dropped. All right, as far as for this next game, I'm gonna get off the disappointment train just a tidbit. We're gonna come back to it, don't worry. And I'm going to talk about a game that I actually did enjoy, and that is Street Fighter 6. Let me just explain to y'all how the floodgates of heaven came rushing down pouringly once Capcom finally realized that they could actually go past Street Fighter Third Strike's timeline. And we finally get to actually learn a little bit more of these characters through World Tour, where you play as your own character. Thought that it was pretty interesting seeing that like Street Fighter 6 essentially with the director and producer is just this giant love note for fighting games, and specifically for fighting games that Capcom made. It's also cool that in World Tour mode that you got to get these characters to become your mentors, and as you're developing your bond with them, not only are you learning their moves, but they're also giving you more backstory about who they are, what they've been up to after Dictator was defeated, or talking about their hometowns growing up, bringing up their family members, bringing up friends, because there are actual cameos of other Street Fighter characters that do pop up in their particular stories. And as someone who grew up on Capcom games, it was very heartwarming to experience. Here's where like I put my like pinky toe on the disappointment train pedestal. The way that they've been going about the monetization in the game and the things that you can buy in the game has been very not only odd but slightly greedy. Like, they've announced a collab during Evo that they did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the skins were like $15 each. If you are someone who did not want to shell out that much, might as well just buy your favorite Ninja Turtle character. That's how you could justify spending $15 for a skin. And even $15 for a skin is kind of nutty. And I just want to reiterate that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skins, they don't go on the characters like Ryu, Ken, Chun. They're not actual characters in Street Fighter. They're just a skin for your avatar. So that's where it's just sort of like, you want me to pay the same price for pretty much a game to get 4 of the same skins with slightly different colored headbands? I don't know what was going on in the Capcom board meeting. Maybe somebody was going a little too ham on the turtle soup. Now, these last 2 games that I have on my 2023 gaming recap, one of them had me in the first half and then lost me in the middle of the second half, and I gotta step back on the toxic disappointment train and talk about my experience with Final Fantasy XVI. Yes, I did a review video on it, and the review video for the most part was actually my first attempt at trying to be spoiler free. That being said, I really want to be not spoiler free since this is the end of the year video. If you don't want to hear spoilers, you might probably want to just like go ahead and just, you out of here? You out of here? All right. Before the game came out and Yoshi P and the crew was marketing Final Fantasy XVI as sort of being in the same field as Game of Thrones, where you have the whole political intrigue and everything that you would expect from Game of Thrones, like a more mature dark fantasy setting. Yes, we all know that Game of Thrones has its shock value and, you know, people dying and the SIGs, the wars. I think what Square failed to realize is that there's a lot more to appreciate about Game of Thrones. It is a brutal world to live in. It holds no punches for nobody. It does not spare the weak. It does not spare the strong. A world where nobody is safe from being backstabbed. Nobody is safe from the harshness of the powers that be, the higher ups, the royal families. Nobody, not even the other royal families. Game of Thrones is the reason why, to this day, people still remember the Red Wedding. Like, that was a pivotal TV moment that nobody was expecting, because who expects an entire massacre of a family at the very wedding that is being held for the family? So that's what makes it remarkable, is that even when you have a moment of peace, it can still be snatched away from you just as quickly as you've obtained that peace. So when I played Final Fantasy XVI and I saw that Joshua got mollywopped, that's the very moment where I was just like, I see what y'all are talking about with this Game of Thrones inspired-esque familiarity, all the synonyms. Like, I see what y'all was going for with it, and I appreciated it. What I didn't appreciate was this weird fucking storyline or plot in the game where not only is Joshua still alive, so you mean to tell me you had this man Clive going through this whole process in his 20s where he's trying to find the person that killed his brother, only to then deny that he might have been the person to kill his brother, then give him hope that he might have found the killer who killed his brother, only to then realize, nope, I was indeed the one who killed my brother. You made Clive go through this very tragic, very mature, very insightful character development, going through so many stages of emotions to finally come into accepting the truth. Like, finally accepting the truth and no longer like attempting to beat himself up about killing his brother. A beautiful showing of character development. I mean, full on soaking in the background with the music going and conducting inside of the PS5 and everything. And on top of that, you did it with the sole purpose of his brother dying being the biggest plot point towards Clive's development. That's risk-taking. That is something that is Games of Thronesy, for lack of a better word, showcasing that not even Clive, not even the protagonist, can be a fully realizing person. But through this turmoil, through this dark period, he rises above it. And you see Clive like beautifully grow, and you see Clive warming up to such a charismatic figure like Sid, like a man who has it all put together. And then the game goes, ha ha, Joshua's still alive, because you didn't know this, but the Rosaria royal family conventionally had a Final Fantasy version of the Sheikah clan. They ended up saving Joshua. It was like, really? You really want to make Clive this like flawless character that can do no wrong? I couldn't respect it. I'm sorry. I just couldn't. And then to go from there to like, these two brothers don't really interact at all, or better yet, there's really not that much interaction between the characters that joins your quote-unquote party. Once Sid, Benedicta, and Hugo die, the game just starts to slowly decline. In the first half, you have this like main cast who are all connected in some way. Benedicta is connected to Sid. Sid and Benedicta are connected to Barnabas, since they're all from the Kingdom of Waloed. Benedicta is connected to Hugo because Hugo is from Dalmekia, if I'm not mistaken. So she's literally sleeping with him just to spy on what's going on and get information. And Hugo is sleeping with her because Hugo, for how much of a big bitch he is, he's a simp. Then Bird Brain goes stupid over there. Seeing how these characters are integral into their respective kingdoms, as well as Dion, because I know I ended up leaving out Dion. You start off the game, the first half is setting up pretty much how everyone is like at war with each other or beginning to war with each other. And you're seeing like all of the politically charged aspects that's taking place in the first part of this story. But once Sid, Benedicta, and Hugo are gone, the rest of the second half into the third act is just not as strong. For someone as intriguing as Barnabas, because they literally barely wanted to give us any goddamn background information about Barnabas other than like his mommy and having a mommy obsession because his mom was a super Jehovah's Witness and she ended up raising Barnabas to be a super Jehovah's Witness. But it's like the way that they set up Barnabas to be this like brolic being of a king, of a warrior, of a person, like this dude who took over this entire kingdom by himself. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to know more about his upbringing. I wanted to know more about his backstory other than him being breastfed up until his mom died. I felt like Barnabas should have just been set up as the ultimate villain. Like, I get it, I understand. Final Fantasy is gonna have us fighting God. Final Fantasy putting in a mandatory God slaying in the story is about as mandatory as paying taxes. It's gonna happen no matter what. Ultima, he had the personality of a cardboard box, but the looks of Mads Mikkelsen. He wasn't a compelling villain. He wasn't an interesting villain at all. Like, Barnabas was more intriguing than him, and I wish like the story had it set up to where maybe Barnabas was like the reincarnation of Ultima and wanted to possess Clive's body. Like, I feel like that would have been a much more better angle that would have had Barnabas play a bigger role than the role he barely even had. Hell, I feel like Barnabas should have just been the Sephiroth of this game. See, this is what I wanted to put in my review video so bad, but I just had the heart to make it spoiler free. Don't know why I made that dumb decision. I should have just ruined it for y'all. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't gonna ruin it for y'all. It could have been better. It was an okay meal. It could have just used a little more seasoning that's not salt and pepper or paprika. FF16 needed some Tony Chachere's. It needed some Slap Your Mama. It needed some Cajun seasoning. Now, the other game that I played that came out this year that was not a disappointment is, well, this year's game of the year, Baldur's Gate 3. I was not expecting to enjoy the game as much as I am enjoying it. Like, I always been curious about playing Dungeons and Dragons because of where I live and because of the fact that like many of my friends are in various parts of the US. You know, I don't know where to go as far as finding like a D&D session to dip my toes in there and experiment until Baldur's Gate 3 came out. Boy, I have been a menace in Baldur's Gate. I have been a menace to society. I have already accidentally started a war with the druid leader. Ended up getting like a village or a town full of tieflings slaughtered, one of the main characters that you can recruit into your group, he ended up dying in the middle of the war. And I was just like, Will is just gone forever. But see, did I wake up with the intent to start a war with a druid leader on my heart that day? Absolutely not. But did I enjoy the chaos that came with starting a war with a druid leader? Kinda. That's when I knew that Bald-Headed Gates 3 was my game. I have no regrets. I'm not gonna hold you. The combat has been whooping my ass, but I'm starting to realize more and more as I kind of see information about the game or see other people share their experience playing the game, like the diverse ways that any playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 can be approached. And that put it into perspective, it is a game where you can know without a doubt that your playthrough is going to be much different than the 20 million other people who bought Baldur's Gate 3. Now, granted, you can also boink with these people. You can do the horizontal tango, with these characters that you recruit into your party. But even just besides that, it's just the fact that the game in and of itself, it has a level of design that just screams freedom to do whatever you want, to not necessarily be punished for doing something, but you will most definitely see the consequences of your action. This game is well worth being Game of the Year. But thank you for watching this video. This is probably going to be the last video that I have for 2023. And as I always say, until next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, unlike me, and I can't wait to see you in 2024. Peace.